Students, leaders, welcome to the 2024 Marksmanship Academy presented by the Centennial Training Site. This is the fourth annual iteration and as of right now, the final iteration for the Basic Marksmanship Academy. The intent for this class and for the Marksmanship Academy for you all are to become subject matter experts and be able to take this information back to the unit level, to the lowest level for your soldiers within your unit. Moving forward away from the Marksmanship Academy, right now as we sit, there should be a reset year in calendar year 2025 with an Advanced Marksmanship Academy taking place in 2026 calendar year. You all have everything in front of you that you need. My name is Sergeant Norcross. I have been attached to the Centennial Training Site for many years as a marksmanship instructor here at Centennial Training Site. I have recently moved and taken a position as the Small Arms Readiness Training Section NCO at Joint Forces Headquarters. A little bit of background about myself. I have been on the Colorado Army National Guard State Marksmanship Team for 9.5 years. I have been on the National Guard International Combat Team and Action Team with the National Guard Marksmanship Training Center out of Camp Joseph T. Robinson, Little Rock, Arkansas for the past 5 years. I'm a double distinguished marksman, disciplines both rifle and pistol. I'm a Governor's 20 recipient holder since 2015 and a Chief's 50 marksmanship badged holder in both rifle and pistol disciplines. I am also the 2023 International Champion for the Armed Forces Skills at Arms meeting. With that said, my other instructor is Sergeant First Class Fulmer. He will talk about his pedigree and he will be helping me instruct this portion for you today. The references that we're going to be covering, all of you students in front of you and on your tables, you have your individual assigned weapon systems that I hope that your unit provided. You need to go back and ensure that your supply sergeants let you treat your assigned weapon systems as your own. Any modifications and additions to these weapon systems, that is a shooter's preference. We're going to get into shooter comfortability and shooter preference. That's going to be covered in the .9. The class this morning is TC 3-22.9, May 2016, Rifle and Carbine. We will also be covering a few portions of the PowerPoint that also include TC 3-22.10 of December 2017, Sniper Manual. Sergeant First Class Fulmer can talk to you a little bit more on why some of those products have been incorporated from that TC as well. The task, condition, and standard for today's classroom portion is going to be to familiarize yourselves with the TC. We have all talked about, and you've heard at your unit level and throughout the National Guard and at the state level, of the new IWQ. And I throw parentheses in there because this is not a new implementation, right? The IWQ has been around for quite some time. There has been equipment changes. There will be more equipment changes moving forward. Your zero targets have changed. The ammunition has changed. The magazines have changed. We should be operating now at a point to where subject matter experts within your units can take this information back and give guidance to leadership within your units on how to properly run the IWQ. So the task is to familiarize yourselves as students here at the Marksmanship Academy with the .9. You have hard copies of the .9 in front of you. You have classroom material, highlighters, pens. I highly recommend that you take notes. I highly recommend that you write things down as they come around. The commander's intent for the Centennial Training Site when the first Marksmanship Academy was introduced to the Colorado National Guard was solely and put out to cover the new IWQ and the doctrine surrounding that information. The instructors here agree with that is very important. The intent was not to make you better marksmen. I disagree, and I will make you better marksmen. And Sergeant Fulmer and the rest of instructors here at Centennial Training Site will make you better marksmen. You will run a range, and you will be more familiarized and start to become subject matter experts in your primary and secondary weapon systems, to include your kit and layout. You will and should leave this class with more trigger time than maybe you've had in the last fiscal year at your units. There used to be some command guidance from past leadership within the CONG to shoot twice a year. I hope that we can move forward. Twice a year is low in my opinion. You need to bring this information back and start a bottom-up leadership approach as to ensure that we are remaining a lethal force within the Colorado Army National Guard. The condition today, given a block of instruction from myself and Sergeant First Class Fulmer, practical hands-on exercise with your weapon systems and the material provided for you. The standard today is to be able to implement SOPs at your individual unit levels in order to conduct the IWQ using the information provided. With that said, we will dive into the commander's intent for the task conditions and standards for the fourth and final basic Marksmanship Academy. The task today is to familiarize yourselves with the TC 3-22.9. The condition, given a block of instruction from myself and Sergeant First Class Fulmer, practical hands-on exercise, and motivated students, please stay motivated, and I will do my best to keep you motivated as well. The standard today is going to be able to implement standard operating procedures at your individual unit levels in order to conduct the new IWQ, and we had talked about that. This is not new. This is years old information that we need to ensure that is being implemented statewide. To conduct that IWQ using TC 3-22.9. Safety. If there is an emergency, active shooter, fire, we will meet at the Circle C outside of the RTI bridge. You can take breaks at any time. You know where the bathrooms are located, and you're all adults. You don't need to ask me. Please keep your phones off. If it's an emergency, please step outside. Any questions? Moving forward, next slide. There's a quote that I like to start the Marksmanship Academy, every Marksmanship Academy I've been involved in, and any classes in marksmanship instruction that I teach throughout the state. Okay, and I hope some of you officers do not get offended. This quote is from Daryl Davis. The military doesn't teach rifle marksmanship. It teaches equipment familiarity. Despite what the officer corps thinks, learning to shoot a rifle is not like learning to drive a car. Instead, it is learning to play the violin. The equipment familiarity learning curve comes up quick, but then the rifle marksmanship continuation of the curve rises very slowly. By shooting one careful shot at a time, carefully inspecting the result and the cause. There is a term that we're going to get into later on in the period of instruction called DOPE, or data on previous engagement. If we do not know the result of us pulling the trigger straight to the rear without disturbing our sights and where our point of aim versus point of impact is, this is all for nothing. So please take that quote. We are rushed very highly in this organization. There are a lot of things that need to be done at the unit level. One of which, lethality and marksmanship, should not be rushed. Soldiers, I like to preface this material that is provided on the screen. It's an old book. It's my actual hard copy, and so I apologize for the image. The image displayed on the visual aid in front of you, I will read it, is the Soldier's Handbook of the Rifle and Scorecard Book for Special Course Charlie, edited at the Army War College, November 1917. As we talk about this, I need you to understand that in 1917, 100 years later, equipment changes, the battlefield environment changes, SOPs and unit tactics change. However, marksmanship and this shot process, which is now called, or fundamentals of marksmanship, do not change. If you are able to pull the trigger straight to the rear without disturbing your sights, you will have the desired effect if that weapon system is zeroed to you. The foreword in this handbook states, this handbook is intended as a guide for all soldiers of the regular Army, National Guard, and National Army who are armed with the rifle and should be used to supplement instruction which they will receive in their organizations. The system and methods suggested are those which are used by practically every rifleman of note in the United States and which are taught at the Infantry School of Arms. While there may be, in some instances, methods which are nearly as good, the idea has been to give the soldier only those methods which are known to be the best, by observing which he will, in the shortest possible time, acquire that skill with the rifle, which will permit him to take his place on the firing line. The soldier must appreciate that his life and the lives of his comrades may often depend on his ability to use his rifle with effect. Moreover, he is of little use to his country, but rather a burden if he is not skilled as a fighter. In the last showdown, the fate of the Union depends on the ability of its soldiers to hit. Continuing on, more information from the Soldier's Handbook of the Rifle and Scorecard Book for Special Course Charlie, edited at the Army War College of November 1917. What we had just talked about, I don't need to read this entire. If you would like to find this doctrine or come find me afterwards, I'd be happy to make you a copy and provide that for you. Soldiers, I would like you to look at number 3, trigger squeeze. Like we had talked about on the previous slide, I just gave you the best piece of marksmanship advice. My training with the National Guard Marksmanship Training Center, international competitions, national, regional, and at the state level, I will never withhold information from you. I will never withhold tips or tricks to make you a better marksman shooter. Neither will any of the instructors here during the Marksmanship Academy. If we look at number 3, I had mentioned the only piece of advice that you need to know in order to become a better marksman. Number 3 states, trigger squeeze. When aiming correctly and holding steadily, it is then necessary that the soldier be able to pull the trigger so as to discharge the rifle without disturbing this aim and steady holding. That is applicable to any weapon system currently issued in the United States Army. If you can do that, which you all can, pull the trigger straight to the rear without disturbing your sight picture, you will have a result that you are looking for. There's a lot of information. If you look down at your books in front of you for the .9, it is a very lengthy document. We can spend days and multiple hours and weeks going through this information. What we are going to be doing, you have the equipment in front of you, sticky notes, your writing material, and highlighters. I want you to follow along and tab, highlight, and mark this book because this is your book. Going back to your units as subject matter experts with this information, advising your command staff on the IWQ and running ranges, you need to be able to quickly identify where in the .9 you need to reference if you are asked a question. Chapter 1 is going to cover the overview of the .9. Chapter 2, rifle and carbine principles of operation. Chapter 3, aiming devices. Chapter 4, mountable equipment. Chapter 5, employment. Chapter 6, stability. Chapter 7, aim. Chapter 8, control. Chapter 9, movement. Appendixes. Appendix Bravo, ballistics. Appendix Charlie, complex engagement. Appendix Delta, drills. Appendix Echo, zeroing. And Appendix Foxtrot, the 10-meter bore sight, off sights, and 25-meter zero. Again, at this time, please use the classroom equipment that has been provided to you and start making notes as we go along. Next slide. Chapter 1. We are not, during this class, going to cover every page. What the instructors for the Marksmanship Academy have done is break this down into what we believe is the most applicable information for you, soldiers, to take back. What we have decided throughout Chapter 1, if you want to make notes, Overview 1-1. This includes, during your tables for the IWQ, this will cover the safe weapons handling for your soldiers, the rules of firearm safety, the weapon safety statuses which are applicable as the commands are given for the IWQ, the weapons control statuses, and overmatch capability. Next slide. In Chapter 1, the rules of firearm safety. Okay? Rule number 1, we should all know this as soldiers, treat every weapon system as if it is loaded. Rule number 2, never point the weapon at anything you do not intend to destroy. Rule number 3, keep your fingers straight and off the trigger until ready to fire and you have made the conscious decision that you are engaging your target only. That is very applicable to the IWQ. Also, rule number 4, ensuring positive identification of the target and its surroundings. Front, left, side to side, up, down, and what is behind your target. Again, the rules of firearm safety should be applicable in any environment. But for the IWQ, you will see similarities, especially when you are taking your soldiers on how these not only apply to the safety of firearm handlings, but the proper execution of the IWQ. Next slide. Soldiers. Weapon safety statuses start with weapon safety status green. Weapon safety status green is magazine removed from the weapon system, bolt locked to the rear or forward. Weapon safety selector on safe. Continuing on. Weapon safety status amber. Filled magazine, in magazine well, bolt forward, weapon system safety selector switch on safe. Continuing forward. Weapon safety status red. Filled magazine, in magazine well, weapon system charge bolt forward, safety selector on safe. Go red, semi or burst auto only when ready to engage. Continuing on, there is a visual aid on the screen right now. The .9 has done a great job moving forward with the new IWQ on what the Army's intent is for marksmanship. As you can see in this graph, the Army wants soldiers to have accuracy, precision, and consistency. So if we look at the graph provided, on the horizontal axis you see accuracy, a low level of accuracy from the soldier and a high level of accuracy from the soldier. On the vertical axis of the graph, we see a consistency line. In the consistency, you will see a low level of consistency at the soldier level and a high level of consistency at the soldier level. What myself and Sergeant Fulmer and the rest of the instructors have realized is that we all make mistakes. And as far as we are tracking, there is a mistake in the .9. This is where I want you to open and find the visual aid graph within your .9s right now. I want you all to look and understand. Let's go over the definitions of what the Army has described as accuracy. The Army describes accuracy as the ability to hit a desired target or point of aim. The Army has described precision as the ability to place the shot group and the desired point of impact. The Army has also defined consistency as the ability to routinely achieve accurate and precise shots. Zeroing is not possible without grouping, and we're going to get into what that means as that note here for you soldiers. But back to the graph, as we can see on the visual aid, consistency on the vertical axis, low and high, and accuracy on the horizontal axis, low and high. Precision and consistency should be switched in this picture on your .9s and in every .9s with the United States Army. The goal for the United States Army on the new IWQ and the .9 for training yourselves and your soldiers is we want your soldiers to be consistent. If we are consistent and repeatable in our shot processes, we will be precise and accurate. That will then give us consistency. What I mean by that is that if we look at the graph, consistency needs to be moved to the ultimate goal of both axes coming to what the Army wants. The Army wants us to be consistent. How we do that is we not only need to be precise, which should be switched to the vertical axis, we also need to be accurate, or using our accuracy. Okay? In the tables for the IWQ, there is now a grouping and then zeroing standard. In tables 4, soldiers will group and show that they can group at least 6 minutes of angle, preferably 4, and then once those soldiers have been blessed off and their packets signed at the unit level, we can start the zeroing process and shift our sights as needed to ensure accuracy. So what we have noticed, and we will reach out to our partners at the AMU, at Fort Moore, Georgia, as well as the National Guard Marksmanship Training Center, is to hopefully update this .9 so that this graph is complete. But as long as you understand that the end goal for the United States Army marksmanship is they want consistency out of you as soldiers, the only way that we can be consistent is to have not only accurate place shots, but precision. Those two will then let you be consistent.